Do you ever worry, Rashid, that Israel's own actions may be making that Israeli Jews and other Jews have had these nightmares, right? That they've been telling themselves for all this time, which partly a product of Jewish trauma, but also just that every group that wants to justify its oppression tells these kinds of stories about the people that it wants to oppress in order to justify that kind of thing. But I think what frightens me is that, especially given what's happened now in Gaza, that maybe Israelis making some of those nightmares more real. That I mean, I have heard Palestinians who I know and respect say things like, I've always supported living alongside Israeli Jews equally. And now I don't know, because I see the entire society cheering this destruction, which is being called by more and more people a genocide. And I'm rethinking things. And so then, of course, then that plays right into people's fears. It's like, aha, you see, they won't live alongside us here. They're looking for Algeria. How much of that do you see, and what's the right way for us to think about it?
I think you're right. There is a view. I know many, many people who say that now. I had no problem thinking about how within a one state or a two state or a confederal or a cantonal or a federal or whatever framework, it would be possible to live with these people. But looking at the wall-to-wall support for genocide, looking at the complete inability to see Palestinian suffering on the part of overwhelming majorities of Israelis, I don't know how I can live with these people. And I know many Palestinians who are citizens of Israel who say, I can't teach in these universities anymore. The kinds of people I'm getting now in class, they hate me, they don't like me, and I can't stand the things that they say and they do.
Wow. So they're trying to immigrate? What do they do?
No, they're leaving. They're just going to leave academia.
Huh.
Two people have told me that.
Wow.
Israelis of high standing within Israeli academia.
Wow. But Palestinian citizens.
Palestinian citizens of the state of Israel with high standing within Israeli and within their professions. So I think that's an expected, natural, understandable reaction to 15 months of watching this, which people have been doing obsessively and which Israelis have self-censored themselves from. They don't see it at all. They know nothing about what's happening. There's no starvation in Gaza. The casualty figures are rigged. I mean, all these lies that are largely believed. And the way in which Israeli television especially has been cheerleading for whatever version the military and the government have put out, have blinded Israel. They don't see it. They haven't seen it. Palestinians have seen only that. And I think that both societies have gone off the rails in the sense of seeing the other, of dehumanizing the other, if you want. So I think your perception is correct. That is the way a lot of people have. Now, is that a temporary thing? I don't know. Once the ceasefire holds, if assuming it does, and once the war ends, assuming it does, and neither of those things is certain, will there be a shift in another direction? I honestly don't know. I hope so, but who knows? I mean, this may be permanent. I don't know.
You're raising a really sensitive, but I think fascinating question that I wonder about sometimes, which is, you said that people in both societies are dehumanizing each other, but obviously they're very differently situated vis-a-vis each other, right? And I, like many Jews, grew up knowing older people who regularly dehumanized Germans and Ukrainians and Poles and Lithuanians. I mean, I remember when the Berlin Wall came down and the Germans were being free in Eastern Europe, I remember older Jews saying to me, fuck them. Like, why should we be happy for them that they're not going to be under oppression anymore? You know, there was a lot of that dehumanization, but Jews mostly just figured, sure, what do you expect? And so what is legitimate to expect of Palestinians in terms of their recognition of Israeli Jewish humanity? I mean, I obviously believe that it's far better for everybody to recognize the dignity and preciousness of all people's lives. But what is a realistic and legitimate thing to expect of Palestinians? Is it legitimate to criticize Palestinian dehumanization of Israeli Jews?
I think the only thing that's legitimate to expect would be a change in Palestinian views if there's a change in Israeli policies. As long as these policies continue, the Gazification of the West Bank, the occupation of more territory in Lebanon and Syria, the way in which Gaza is still being treated, even under, I don't see any reason for people to change their views. This is a genocidal state trying to destroy us and expel us. And, you know, we have no alternatives but to resist. And why would we live with them? They don't want to live, they want to destroy us. That's the Palestinian view. And Israel has the capacity to do that. The Israeli view is that the Palestinians are some combination of the Nazis and the Cossacks and Titus, and they have no means They are
Yeah.
completely incapable of doing more than a fraction of what Israel can do to the Palestinians, a tiny, tiny fraction. Somebody one day should do the casualties when we know the final death toll and the final number of wounded. It'll be 100 to 1, it'll be 80 to 1. So you have one people that has nasty views of the other for, in my view, largely understandable reasons, i.e., their experience of what has been done to them, but has limited capabilities. And you have another group, which, for mainly reasons of their own history, rather than anything the Palestinians themselves have done to them, though partly that, have not only a dehumanized vision of the enemy, but have done a great deal to end the lives of and the existence in Palestine of a very large proportion of the enemy. I mean, we're talking about a regional superpower with nuclear weapons that's just killed 50, 60, 80,000 people with the support of the greatest superpower in world history and the bombs and so on from. So on the one hand, we have what you may or may not describe as genocidal intent and dehumanization. On the other side, you have very limited capacities, and you may call it dehumanizing intent, but it's not the same. A, because it wasn't the Palestinians who came and colonized Minsk and Pinsk and the ghettos. It was Jewish refugees from Europe who came and colonized Palestine. We didn't go to them. They came to us. We didn't take their land. They took our land. I mean, I don't have somebody's grandfather's home in Odessa. They have my grandfather's home. So there's no equality here. We're not talking about the same thing. On the other hand, both peoples believe, in my view, in the Palestinian view, sincerely and partly correctly, that the other people wants to either exterminate them or expel them. And the Israelis believe much the same thing, but what they don't realize is their fears are largely generated by Jewish history, A. And then B, the Palestinians in any case don't have the capability to do that. I mean, those are all, I think, factors. But the core part of your question, when can we expect this to change on the Palestinian side, I think will entirely depend on changes in Israeli behavior. And I don't know when and if that will come.
This has been a free preview of my weekly conversation. If you'd like to hear the rest and support my work, please consider subscribing at peterbeinart.substack.com.